You open the council tax bill at the kitchen table, glance at the amount, spot the band letter in the corner, and feel that small twist of worry that comes when one ordinary piece of paper suddenly seems less ordinary than it used to. It is often not the bill itself that unsettles you at first, it is the thought behind it. The house has been yours for years, maybe decades. The mortgage was paid off long ago, the paperwork was put away, life moved on, and because nothing dramatic changed, it is easy to assume everything on record stayed neat, correct, and up to date all by itself. But that is exactly where trouble can quietly begin. For many older homeowners, especially those living on a fixed retirement income, the real worry is not some huge disaster, it is the possibility of an awkward surprise, a letter you were not expecting, a detail that was never updated, a name still sitting on a record years after a spouse passed away, a question about the property that suddenly appears after no one has looked closely at it for a very long time. That kind of surprise can be stressful even before it costs anything, and this matters most in homes that feel the most settled. If you have stayed in the same property for 20, 30, even 40 years, it is natural to think stability means safety. If the mortgage is gone, the bills have been paid, and the keys have stayed in the same hands, why would there be anything to check now? Because council tax records, ownership records, and property history do not always move together. A home can look simple on the surface and still have old details underneath. The council may hold one set of information, the Land Registry, which keeps the legal ownership record for registered property in England and Wales, may show something else. Old assumptions can sit there for years without causing any fuss at all, until a review, a bereavement update, a sale, a legal query, or even a scammer shining a light on the confusion brings it all to the surface at once. That is why this is worth paying attention to before 2026 bills and reviews become a source of stress. A lot of people have never checked their council tax band beyond making sure the payment went out. That is understandable. Most of us look at the total, the due date, and little else. But the band itself matters. It is one of the first things to confirm, and for older homeowners, there are really 3 quiet pressure points that deserve a closer look. The first is the long-owned, mortgage-free home. Not because being mortgage-free causes a problem, but because a property with no remortgage, no sale, and no lender involved can go for years without anyone prompting a record check. The second is ownership after a death. Many people did all the urgent paperwork when a husband, wife, or co-owner died, then assumed every official record changed with it. Sometimes that happens smoothly. Sometimes one record is updated and another is not. Years later, that can create confusion you do not need. The third is the property band itself. Not because every home is about to be changed, and not because today's house prices automatically rewrite council tax, but because if values, property details, or records are questioned, it helps to know where you stand before someone else starts asking. And there is another layer to this that makes calm checking even more important. Scammers know older homeowners worry about bills, records, and official letters. They know words like rebanding, refund, review, arrears, and property check sound believable. So when people feel unsure about what is real, they can be easier to catch. That is why the safest approach is not to wait for a confusing letter, a cold call, or a knock at the door to define the issue for you. A small record problem is always easier to deal with when you find it early, on your own terms, with the right contact details in front of you. So that bill on the kitchen table is not just a payment demand, it is the starting point, because once you know what to check, you can move from vague worry to something much more useful, clear, simple checks that help protect your money, your records, and your peace of mind. The first place to look is not the amount due, it is the band letter itself, the name of the council on the bill, and the phone number or contact details printed there. That sounds simple, but it is where a lot of people start to feel clearer. Once you know exactly what band the property is in and exactly which authority is billing you, you have a proper starting point instead of a vague worry. In England and Scotland, council tax bands still trace back to property values from 1991. In Wales, they are based on 2003 values. That catches many people off guard, because it means the band is not simply following today's house prices. A neighbor might say homes on your road are now worth far more than they used to be, and that may be true, but that alone does not tell you whether your council tax band is right or wrong. So before assuming anything has changed, it helps to confirm what the record actually says now. And this is where long-owned, mortgage-free homes deserve a closer look. Not because there is something suspicious about them, quite the opposite. They are often the homes that have had the fewest reasons for paperwork to be reviewed. If there has been no remortgage, no sale, no lender asking for fresh documents, and no legal work for years, small mismatches can simply sit there unnoticed. The house feels settled, life feels settled, but the records underneath may be older than you think. That is especially important because council tax records and ownership records are not the same thing. The council may be sending bills correctly. You may have paid them without fail for years, but the legal title for the property could still tell an older story. That is why the second big check is the Land Registry record, especially if a husband, wife, or other co-owner has died. Many people did everything they could at the time of a bereavement. They dealt with the will, the bills, the bank, the funeral, and all the practical tasks that come in a blur. It is completely understandable if the title register was not something you thought about later, but sometimes a late spouse or former co-owner remains listed on the title because a formal update was never completed. That does not always cause an immediate problem. In fact, it can sit quietly for years. Then one day a question comes up about ownership, correspondence, probate, or a property review, and suddenly an old detail becomes a live issue. So it is worth checking early, while there is no pressure. If the property is registered in England or Wales, the Land Registry record shows the legal ownership. If a deceased spouse is still listed, or if you are not sure how the property was held, that is the moment to pause and get clear advice. In some cases, Land Registry guidance helps. In others, a solicitor or probate specialist may be the sensible route. The important thing is not to leave yourself guessing. The third point is the one that worries many people most: property value and band questions. If local prices have risen sharply, or if the home was improved over the years, it is natural to wonder whether the band could be looked at. But again, this is where calm matters. Today's market value does not automatically reset your council tax band. A higher selling price in your area does not mean a bill is about to jump by itself. What it can mean is that if a review, challenge, sale, or record query happens, the band may come under closer attention. That is why one of the most useful questions to ask the council tax department is very plain. Ask whether the property has been flagged for any review or recalculation, and whether the account details they hold match their records. You are not accusing anyone of anything. You are not inviting trouble. You are simply checking your position before confusion builds, and there is a good reason to do that through official channels only, because this is exactly the kind of uncertainty scammers like to exploit. A fake email about a refund, a phone call claiming your band is wrong, a text telling you to click a link to avoid extra charges. The more believable the topic, the easier it is for a scam to sound official. That is why the safest next step matters so much. Use only the official number printed on your latest bill or the official route through gov.uk and nowhere else. That one habit can protect you from a surprising amount of trouble. If a message comes in first by email, text, phone call, or even a knock at the door, treat it as unconfirmed until you have checked it yourself. Do not click the link. Do not ring back the number they gave you. Do not read out your bank details. Do not hand over your national insurance number to someone who contacted you out of the blue. And do not let a stranger into the house because they say they are there to sort out your council tax band. Real councils have official contact routes. You already have the safest one in front of you on the bill. If you prefer, you can also go through gov.uk to find the correct council website and number. That way, you stay in control of the conversation. When you do call, keep it simple. Confirm the current band. Confirm the name and address details they hold. Ask whether the property has been flagged for any review or recalculation. If something seems unclear, ask them to explain it in plain language. You do not need special wording. You just need clear answers from the right place. And if there has been a death or a change in ownership at some point, make that your second check. Look at the Land Registry record and see whether the legal ownership matches real life now. Many people are surprised to find that everyday bills were updated years ago, while the title record was left behind. That does not mean you have done something wrong. It usually means life was busy, painful or complicated at the time, and one part of the paperwork never caught up. But it is much easier to sort out when you notice it calmly rather than when another issue brings it to the surface. The same goes for nouns on letters. If post is still arriving in the name of a husband, wife, or co-owner who died some time ago, do not just brush it aside as one of those things. It may be harmless, but it may also be a sign that one record somewhere still needs attention. Little clues like that are worth following up. And if you have been wondering about the band because property prices in your area have climbed, keep the worry in proportion. A more expensive housing market today does not automatically mean your band is about to change, but it does mean it is sensible to know what band you are in, whether nearby comparable homes seem broadly similar, and whether the council has any active review note against the property. Calm information is always better than guessing. What matters here is not becoming an expert in council tax law. It is making sure your own home does not drift into confusion simply because the records were left untouched for too long. Later life often brings fewer dramatic property changes, but more chance of quiet paperwork drift. The house stays the same, the routine stays the same, yet the paper trail underneath can slowly stop matching the reality above it. So come back to that kitchen table for a moment. The bill is still there. The amount due may not have changed much yet, but now it means something different. It is not just another annual demand to file away. It is a checklist. Check the band. Check the official number. Check who legally owns the property if anything changed after a death or inheritance. Ask the council directly if any review or recalculation is flagged. Ignore outside pressure until you have verified it yourself. A few early checks will not solve every future issue, but they can reduce the chance of an avoidable increase, a stressful mix-up, or a convincing scam catching you off guard. And that is really the point. Not panic, not suspicion, just steady protection of your money, your home, and your peace of mind before someone else decides the story for you.